So I'm going to turn now to introducing our speaker, Rick Garcia. I'm also going to make this presentation go away because it's not the right one. Rick is the regional administrator, as I noted earlier, of Region 8 for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Region 8 based in Denver and including the state of Utah. He's held that position since 2010, I believe. He's also the sustainability advisor to Secretary Sean Donovan of HUD. Prior to his tenure with HUD, Rick was elected to the Denver City Council and was also an elected RTD board commissioner. RTD is their regional transit district, transportation district, I'm not sure which. So Rick has been very important in his previous tenure in Denver before HUD to the transformation of the Denver region, which also includes light rail and other transit as an important component. Rick has a long and an important bio if you'd like to see more, but for now I'm going to relieve you of listening to me and pass the podium over to Rick Garcia. Rick.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chris, for that generous introduction. Let me first begin by saying welcome to Region 8. Welcome to Salt Lake City. I know you had that introduction a moment ago, or earlier in this program by Robert Groh and Mayor Becker. But if you're the regional administrator of the Rocky Mountain West, Utah is part of your region. So I spent not a lot, but a fair amount of time here in Salt Lake. So next to Denver, it's certainly my favorite western city. Let me also give acknowledgement and thanks to the HUD Office of Sustainable Housing and Communities, the Institute for Sustainable Communities, and the Sustainable Communities Learning Network, as well as Envision Utah for hosting today's and the next 2 days' activities. This is an important undertaking by these organizations to support you in your transition to implementation. As Chris indicated in my background, I spent a number of years serving as a Denver City Council person. And in Denver, we have had the opportunity and perhaps even the challenge of working through many sustainable community initiatives. In fact, some folks maybe didn't even know we were doing sustainable community work. And here in the room, let me just acknowledge quickly some of the folks that have done work in the Denver area over the years that played a significant role in one of our big milestones in the city of Denver, which was reforming and completely rehauling the 1955 zoning codes into a more form-based application, linking transit more to land use decisions in our city. And one of those individuals is a capacity building consultant with Reconnecting America, now the National Resource Defense Council, and that's Catherine Cox-Blair. And then one of your recent additions to your grantee team from the city of Madison, Wisconsin, Catherine Carnwell. Congratulations on your new post there. The folks in Madison are very fortunate to have Catherine at the helm of your planning office. And then working for me in the Region 8 office, but also a former planner with the city of Denver years ago, Guadalupe Herrera, who's my sustainable officer here in the region. So you can see from the full circle of how these folks have done this work and continue to support others in your local communities that you have identified the kinds of projects that you're going to be working on and implementing now that you've moved forward. I also want to give acknowledgement to the city of Salt Lake. I don't know that Mayor Becker indicated this earlier in his presentation, but I'd be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge this. Salt Lake City is one of our nation's communities, larger cities, that is on the ebb of ending chronic homelessness among veterans. In fact, they may be the first city in the nation through the strong initiative that we started with the Obama administration to end homelessness, particularly among veterans, to actually accomplish that. They're down to roughly about 30 chronic veterans. They know who they are on the streets, and they have also started to identify permanent housing for these individuals. So in the course of the next year, you may be reading headlines that Salt Lake City has accomplished a major milestone by ending chronic homelessness among veterans. And that's a great feat and undertaking that many folks I know in the room from the Salt Lake community, Salt Lake County, as well, have also contributed to this effort. So congratulations to Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, and all the local elected leaders for that wonderful accomplishment. In addition, I don't think it's any accident that this meeting is in Salt Lake. As Robert Groh indicated, and I wasn't here for the entire presentation earlier, but I'm certain that he filled you in on the wonderful accomplishments and the genesis that Envision Utah really began to get the Salt Lake community, Salt Lake County, the Wasatch Front communities here, moving in a direction to do regional sustainable planning. Their work, frankly, has become a national model. Many communities are trying to find out how they can do the same thing, and I know many of you will learn from these experiences here. You know, Envision Utah started the process. Wasatch 2040 has been the entity that has continued to implement this, their regional sustainable planning effort. And just recently, as they wrapped up their multi-year grant, their governor, Gary Herbert, acknowledged that this planning effort will serve as a model for other towns and cities throughout the state of Utah as they continue to manage their growth and population increase. So that is a testament to the kind of outcomes I think we all want to see in our local communities as we move towards implementation of the multi-year planning work that each of you have been involved with. You know, 4 years ago, and those 4 years have gone by quickly, was the creation of the Partnership for Sustainable Communities. And that's when President Obama gave the directive to HUD, US DOT, and US EPA to work together to create strong, sustainable communities by connecting housing to jobs, fostering economic development, and helping build a clean energy economy. 4 years ago, I remember very vividly, I wasn't appointed to this position yet, and that particular group of cabinet members, including my boss, Sean Donovan, were in Denver doing a multi-city tour to talk about how this new partnership and relationship was going to be launched and how it was going to make a difference in the lives of how local communities work together to ensure there's a regional collaboration and we all move towards the common goals of sustainability. Well, I think we, with your help, have made tremendous progress. Those core policy objectives were to better connect and coordinate housing to jobs. The Federal Sustainable Communities Partnership and HUD through its federal housing programs and US DOT through its transportation investments wanted to influence local land use decisions. EPA had already been involved in the smart growth business, so it was a natural connection to bring these three entities together. The outcomes: we wanted to reduce transportation costs for families. We wanted to improve housing affordability. We wanted to save energy and increase access to housing and employment opportunities. In many ways, your plans for the last 3 years you've been working on have started that process. You have contributed to all of us making progress on that goal. Now I'd like to say the real work begins, or maybe it's just the additional work begins. Transition to implementation. All that good planning has to now be seen through a process. We need to make progress in objectives, and we all will be held accountable for this effort. We'll be measured specifically by the implementation of all your plans and by the positive and productive outcomes that you'll have on your communities, including new jobs that have been created, economic development opportunities, redevelopment of infill locations, enhanced mobility choices, and a greater quality of life for all partners and all residents that live in these areas. That's what the future, the immediate future of implementation will hold. Yes, I recognize, and I think HUD and our federal partners also recognize there will be challenges along the way. As I read through your individual summaries of many of your projects as you embark on your implementation phase, I recognize there are some common themes in some of these challenges that lie ahead. Let me just share a couple of these with you. Maintaining community support and engagement. Convincing local officials about the relevance of these plans. Funding and finding financing for some of your implementation strategies and projects. And keeping these disparate multi-jurisdictional group and their leaders coalesced together, working towards those common goals. Not terribly different from the kind of challenges that I worked on as a city council member in my hometown of Denver. I think the answer to a lot of these challenges with the local elected is going to be that local electeds are going to have to be intimately involved and engaged in the implementation process. And I bet some of you in the room that have already asked some critical questions that are electeds recognize that you're going to have to take a strong leadership role in bringing the other electeds along to ensure that these plans have meaning and purpose, and it really is going to be the answer to economic resiliency in your community in the years to come. HUD has offered some programming dollars and activities through some traditional programs, programs that you're probably already familiar with. Community development block grants, the choice neighborhood initiatives, and also trying to ensure that our Federal Housing Administration affordable and market rate rental programs also are available to your local communities as you begin your implementation phases. USDOT will continue to make available Tiger grants and FTA livability grants, as well as FHWA's discretionary grants that are now starting to specifically address sustainability objectives in their planning processes, as well as EPA's brownfield restoration programs, their smart growth technical assistance, and wastewater funds. These are just a smattering of federal agency partners or programs in the partnership that will continue to be available and are available today as you move towards your implementation. More specifically, public housing authorities that are part of your planning boundaries have the opportunity for choice planning and implementation programs that will build, and they will have a built-in competitive advantage with HUD's preferred sustainable status. All of you in the room are eligible as graduates of the 2010 and some of the 2011 Challenge Grant classes to be eligible for an additional competitive advantage on applications from choice and some of these other internal grant programs to receive an additional 2-point bonus if the applicant has been part of your regional sustainable planning process. Some of these other grant programs that would be available from HUD fall into the Rural Innovation Program category, lead-based hazards control and reduction grants, as well as Healthy Homes Production grants, Choice Neighborhoods I mentioned, Hope 6 Main Street program, as well as Section 202 and Section 811, which are housing for seniors and individuals with disabilities. If these applications for these kinds of programs on a competitive basis are made available broadly, and if anyone in your consortium makes an application, they were part of this planning process, they will receive an additional 2-point increase in the overall rating process. That's something that is going to be extended to all of the graduates of the Sustainable and Challenge Grant programs. Let me share a couple examples close to home, or close to my home here in Region 8, where we've had some regional sustainable planning grantees complete their work and what they've been able to start on through their own implementation process. In Colorado, there's a small community along the I-70 corridor west of Denver called the town of Rifle. Rifle is located in a high energy oil and gas arena. It also is a community that has absorbed a lot of the working individuals who support the resort skiing economies up along the Roaring Fork Valley community, including the town of Aspen. So this community was able, when they completed their grant, to secure an additional $25,000 planning grant from the state of Colorado to wrap up their work. In addition to that, they also received a $5.5 million grant, Tiger grant from US DOT to do road development work in their area. These elements that they were funded for are directly in alignment with their planning process. So there are examples of how this outcome for additional dollars, both from state and other federal agencies, is in fact working. In Pine Ridge, South Dakota, the Lakota Sioux Indian Reservation, a local community development corporation known as Thunder Valley, recently was awarded an $8 million Tiger grant as a result of wrapping up their regional sustainable planning work. They were part of the 2010 class. They are going to improve in road work and important transportation development on the reservation. In addition, within the state of South Dakota, the legislature created a housing trust fund. The Community Development Corporation, Thunder Valley, also just last month received a $378,000 grant to start new housing development on the reservation as a direct result of their planning grant. So there are examples, and I know there's others around the country where some awards have already started to be made by individuals and other local, state, and other federal sources. But I think the outlook is bright for the work that you've completed, because it's been done thoroughly and collaboratively and has included many pieces of your local organization. I think you will continue to be competitive on these federal grants. Now, looking forward, at least in the short term, let me tell you a little bit about where I think HUD and the federal partners will continue to support your work in the implementation process. We need to, and where we haven't already done this, we need to help you tell your story better. We need to be able to send out the secretary, deputy secretaries, regional administrators, and other high-ranking officials from these departments to your communities to help you and support your local storytelling. So local media and the press and other kinds of communication opportunities about the work that you've done and how successful that's been, particularly if you've received an award, a grant award of some sort. In addition, we have a cadre of 80-plus sustainable officers around the country, made up from the rank and file of HUD employees, those who are committed to the sustainable work that you've been involved with. They stepped up and volunteered additional time from their standard workload to support you and your efforts. These individuals will continue to be available to come together in teams to support you, much the same way in this kind of capacity building leadership academy that you're experiencing today in the next couple days. In addition to the preferred sustainable status category that I mentioned that we have agreed to and now make available within HUD as a single federal agency, we continue to work as the federal partnership to expand this kind of additional point system for competitive grants to and through the U.S. Economic Development Administration, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the National Endowment for the Arts, Health and Human Services, as well as USDA. So over the course of the next, hopefully not years, but maybe months, as we continue to collaborate in this effort at the federal partnership, we'll be able to extend that same competitive advantage for these grant awards and these other federal agencies. And there is continued work being done on a joint waiver process to eliminate perhaps unnecessary regulations or be able to get waivers granted, not just from HUD-related programs, but from other federal agencies in a collaborative fashion to support you in the kind of infrastructure projects and plans that you may have in your local communities. We still have some work to be done in that arena, but we'll continue to do that. And most importantly, we need to embed sustainability in every key HUD program. We need to ensure that through the community development block grant program and home fund program and the consolidated plan process that local entitlements are required to update and review every few years, that sustainable principles are embedded in that effort. We continue to work in that arena, as well as in the arena of fair housing regulations, particularly with equity assessments. And many of you have been involved in that effort, and particularly with the new rule of affirmatively furthering fair housing will become a standard in the HUD housing world. In addition, we need to align HUD energy and green standards into other incentives through our federal home housing agency, FHA programs for multifamily market rate products as well as affordable housing products. So those developers in your communities who have been part of a planning process can get additional support, maybe a less interest rate or a streamlined review process, so new housing construction can be built more rapidly. These are just a few of the examples of where the federal partnership, and specifically within HUD, we will continue to be involved. So from transition to implementation, I know that you are at the ebb of a major undertaking. I recognize that, all my other colleagues recognize that, and I know the folks within the Office of Sustainable Housing and Communities do. We're really in this together because your success in your implementation, regardless of how long it's going to take, is going to be our success as well. So we're in this together. We have already together accomplished much in 4 years, but the goal now is to create a lasting legacy that goes beyond just this administration's policy objective, that it's embedded in the way that HUD and the other federal partners do business. And that's going to benefit you and your communities as you continue to implement your plan. That is the goal. I know it can be done. I've been actively involved in many years of patience and policy implementation to do a zoning code overhaul that takes a lot of time, but the benefits are now occurring in my city of Denver, and I know it's going to happen in your community. So I continue to look forward to working with you and inspiring the other federal partners to remain engaged. And all indications are that the federal partnership will stay intact and will grow and will flourish and continue to be made available to support you in your implementation efforts. So with that, let me congratulate you on your multi-year work in your planning process. As you embark on the transition to implementation, the federal partnership will continue to be there to support you. I look forward to supporting you as well. Thank you very much.